Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the broken roof of what used to be Seoul's tallest building. Black smoke covered the sky like a thick blanket. Far above, the last human ships were leaving Earth forever. Their engines made bright lines across the dark clouds as they flew away from the home they could no longer protect. The aliens had won. The Nethrak Empire had taken everything. Dae-ho touched the radio on his chest. "All units, this is Captain Kim. Fall back to the evacuation point. We have 10 minutes before the ships leave without us." His voice was calm, but his heart was breaking. 27 years he had lived on this planet. Now he was watching it die. The Nethrak had come 6 months ago. At first, people thought they could fight them. Earth had strong armies, smart weapons, and brave soldiers. But the aliens were too advanced. Their weapons cut through human tanks, like hot knives through butter. Their shields stopped every missile and bomb humans could throw at them. Worst of all, their commanders could read human minds and know what the armies would do before they did it. Dae-ho ran down the broken stairs. Glass and metal covered the floors. Outside, he could hear the sound of Nethrak ships flying overhead. They made a low humming noise that hurt his ears and made his teeth ache. 3 blocks away, he found Dr. Yoon-ji Park loading data files into a small ship. She was one of Earth's best scientists, and she knew more about the Nethrak than anyone else. Her clothes were torn and dirty, and she had a cut on her forehead, but her hands were steady as she worked. "Dr. Park," Dae-ho called out. "We need to go now." She looked up at him. "Almost finished. This data might be the only way we can understand them. If we lose this information, we lose any chance of coming back." "Coming back?" Dae-ho helped her carry the last box. "Look around, Doctor. There is no coming back from this." Dr. Park stopped and stared at him. "There has to be. This is our home." Before Dae-ho could answer, the ground shook. A Nethrak war machine was coming down the street. It was huge, like a metal spider with glowing red eyes. Its legs left deep, holes in the road as it walked. Steam came out of vents on its back. "Move!" Dae-ho grabbed Dr. Park's arm and pulled her toward the ship. They ran as fast as they could. Behind them, the war machine fired a bright green beam that turned a whole building into dust. The heat from the beam made the air around them hot and hard to breathe. They reached the ship just as Admiral Tae-hyun Lee was closing the door. The admiral was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had been fighting the Nethrak for months, and Dae-ho could see that each loss had taken something from him. "Captain Kim, Dr. Park, get inside," the admiral said. "We are the last ship in this area." The ship lifted off just as 3 Nethrak fighters came around the corner. Green beams lit up the air around them, but their pilot was good. The ship twisted and turned between the tall buildings, using them as cover. As they climbed higher, Dae-ho looked out the window. Seoul was burning. The Nethrak had built strange crystal towers in the middle of the city. Purple gas was coming out of the towers and spreading across the ground. Wherever the gas went, the plants died, and the ground turned black. "They're changing our air," Dr. Park said quietly. She was looking at a small computer screen. "The gas has methane and sulfur in it. They breathe that instead of oxygen." "How long before the whole planet is like that?" Admiral Lee asked. 6 months, maybe less." The admiral closed his eyes. "Then Earth is truly lost." In the back of the ship, Dae-ho saw something that surprised him. A young boy was sitting next to an old monk. The boy looked about 16 years old. His name was Han Sol Choi, and he was supposed to be some kind of genius with math and science. The monk was Master Ki-Wan Nam, an old Buddhist teacher from a temple in the mountains. The boy was crying, but he was trying not to show it. The monk had his hand on the boy's shoulder and was speaking to him in a low voice. "Master Nam," Admiral Lee said, walking over to them. "I'm sorry we couldn't save more of your people." The old monk looked up. His face was peaceful, even though everything around them was falling apart. "We saved what was most important, Admiral. Not just lives, but knowledge. The old ways, the things that make us human." "What good are old ways against their technology?" Admiral Lee asked. Master Nam smiled. "Perhaps more good than you think, but that is a lesson for another day." The ship shook as they left Earth's atmosphere. Through the windows, they could see hundreds of other human ships flying toward a massive carrier called the New Dawn. It was one of the biggest ships humans had ever built, and now it was packed with refugees from a dead world. Dr. Park was still, looking at her data files. "Admiral, I found something strange in the Nethrak communications we captured." "What is it?" "They're not just conquerors. They're running from something that scares them more than we ever could." Admiral Lee sat down heavily. "Running from what?" "I don't know yet. But whatever it is, it's big enough to make them flee across the galaxy and take our planet as a hiding place." Daeho looked out at Earth one last time. The blue and green planet he remembered was already changing. The oceans were turning brown. The clouds were becoming thick and dark. In a few more months, it would look like an alien world. But something inside him refused to give up. Maybe Master Nam was right. Maybe there were things about being human that the Nethrak didn't understand. Things that could help them fight back. The New Dawn was huge, but it wasn't big enough for all the humans trying to get on board. Ships had to wait in line. Families were separated. Children cried for parents they might never see again. When they finally docked, Admiral Lee gathered his officers. "We have maybe 12 million people across all the ships," he said. "The outer colonies can support maybe half that number. We need to find new homes, and we need to do it fast." "What about fighting back?" Daeho asked. "With what?" "We threw everything. We had at them. It wasn't enough." Master Nam stepped forward. "Admiral, if I may, sometimes the strongest thing is not the thing that hits hardest. Sometimes it is the thing that bends but does not break." "Pretty words, Master Nam, but words won't stop their war machines." The old monk nodded. "Perhaps not, but there are other kinds of strength. Older kinds. We will need time to remember them." As the human fleet moved away from Earth, Daeho made a promise to himself. Somehow, some way, he would come back. And when he did, he would bring something the Nethrak couldn't. Fight. He just had to figure out what that was. 5 years had passed since Earth fell to the Nethrak Empire. Captain Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship, the Defiant, watching another human colony burn in the distance. The ice planet of Frost Haven had been home to 50,000 refugees. Now it was just smoke and melted ice. "Captain," Commander So Young Yoon said from behind him, "we lost contact with New Harmony 3 hours ago. That's the 4th colony this month." Daeho closed his eyes. Each lost colony meant thousands of dead humans, families destroyed, children who would never grow up. "How many ships did they send?" 15 Nethrak destroyers. Our people didn't stand a chance. The human fleet had scattered across dozens of worlds after leaving Earth. Some went to ice planets far from any sun. Others hid in asteroid fields or built homes on desert moons. They thought distance would keep them safe. They were wrong. The Nethrak hunted them everywhere. Their ships were faster than human vessels. Their weapons were stronger, and their psychic commanders always seemed to know where the humans would run next. Daeho had tried everything. Surprise attacks, hit-and-run raids, even desperate frontal assaults. Nothing worked. Every time humans developed a new weapon or tactic, the Nethrak adapted within days. It was like fighting an enemy that could read their minds. "Sir," So Young said quietly, "the men are starting to talk. They want to know if we should look for a new home beyond Nethrak space. Stop fighting and just run." Daeho turned to look at her. So Young had been with him since the fall of Earth. She was brave, smart, and loyal. If she was bringing this up, it meant the situation was worse than he thought. "What do you think, Commander?" "I think running might be the smart choice. But I also think some things are worth fighting for, even if we can't win." Before Daeho could answer, his radio crackled. "Captain Kim, this is Admiral Lee. Report to the flagship immediately. We found something important." The flagship was the New Dawn, the massive carrier that had saved so many people during the evacuation. Now it served as the mobile capital of the human diaspora. Daeho had to take a shuttle to reach it, flying past dozens of other ships that made up the refugee fleet. He found Admiral Lee in the science lab with Dr. Yoonji Park. The doctor looked older than her years. Stress and sleepless nights had added gray to her hair and lines to her face, but her eyes were still sharp and she was excited about something. "Captain Kim," she said as soon as he walked in. "I've made a breakthrough. Look at this." She pointed to a screen showing brain scans and energy readings. "I've been studying captured Nethrak technology for 5 years. Their psychic abilities work by reading quantum fields around living beings. But there are gaps in what they can see." "What kind of gaps?" Daeho asked. "Emotional states they can't understand. Mental patterns that don't follow logic. I've been testing this with some of our people, and I found something amazing." Dr. Park pulled up another screen. "When humans meditate, when they enter certain emotional states, when they perform ritual movements, their quantum signatures change. They become fuzzy, harder to read." Admiral Lee rubbed his chin. "Are you saying meditation can block their mind reading?" "More than that. I think certain human practices can make us completely invisible to their psychic detection." Daeho felt a spark of hope for the first time in months. "What kind of practices?" "That's where it gets interesting," Dr. Park said. "Master Nam has been working with refugees from different cultures, Buddhist monks, Korean shamans, indigenous healers. They've been adapting old spiritual practices for life in space." "You mean the old monk from Earth? He's still alive?" "Very much so, and he's been busy." Dr. Park led them through the ship to a section Daeho had never seen before. The corridors here were different, quiet. The walls had strange symbols painted on them, and the air smelled like incense. They found Master Nam in a large room with about 30 people. The group included old monks in brown robes, women in traditional Korean hanbok dresses, and even some younger refugees. They were moving together in slow, graceful patterns, like a dance performed in complete silence. Han Sol Choi was among them. The young genius had grown up during the 5 years in space. He was taller now, more serious, but Daeho could see the same sharp intelligence in his eyes. "Master Nam," Admiral Lee called out softly. The old monk finished his movement and turned to them. He still had the same peaceful face, but now there was something else in his expression. Power, maybe, or understanding. "Admiral Lee, Captain Kim. Welcome. I have been hoping you would come. Dr. Park says you've been working on something that might help us fight the Nethrak." Master Nam smiled. "Fight? Perhaps, but not in the way you might think." He gestured to the people around him. "We have been remembering old truths, ways of being that your enemies cannot understand." "Can you be more specific?" Daeho asked. Han Sol stepped forward. "Captain Kim, I've been studying with Master Nam, while also working with Dr. Park. The quantum mechanics are fascinating. When we practice these traditional techniques, our brain patterns change in ways that Nethrak technology can't process." "How so?" "Their psychic abilities are based on logic and prediction. They read quantum fields and calculate probabilities. But human emotions, especially complex ones like grief mixed with hope, create patterns that don't follow their mathematical models." Master Nam nodded. "In Korean, we call this Han. It is a feeling that holds sadness and joy together, pain and love, anger and acceptance. The Nethrak mind cannot understand such contradictions." Dr. Park pulled out a small device. "We tested this yesterday. Watch." She pointed the device at one of the monks. Numbers and graphs appeared on its screen, showing complex energy readings. Then the monk began to meditate, and the readings changed dramatically. The clear patterns became fuzzy, uncertain. "This is similar to how Nethrak psychic scanners work," Dr. Park explained. "When our people enter certain states of consciousness, they become ghosts to enemy sensors." Admiral Lee looked skeptical. "This is all very interesting, but how does it help us fight their war machines?" Master Nam walked over to a young woman Daeho didn't recognize. She was wearing traditional Korean clothes and had paint on her face in patterns that looked like a mask. "This is Mi Young Seo," Master Nam said. "She was a shaman on Jeju Island before the invasion. Show them what you can do." Mi Young nodded and began to move. But this wasn't like the slow meditation Daeho had seen before. She danced, her movements sharp and sudden, like a warrior or a spirit. As she moved, something strange happened. Daeho could see her clearly, but the scanning device couldn't. The readings showed empty space where she should be. "Impossible," Admiral Lee whispered. Traditional Korean mask dance, Master Nam explained, combined with breathing techniques that alter consciousness. To your machines, she is not there. Daeho felt his heart racing. Could this work on a larger scale? Could we hide ships? Armies? We are learning, Master Nam said. But yes, I believe so. The old ways are not dead, Captain Kim. They are simply waiting to be remembered. Han Sol added, I've been working on technology that could amplify these effects. Meditation chambers that help people reach the right mental states faster. Ship systems that respond to consciousness instead of computers. Dr. Park nodded excitedly. If we can scale this up, we could have fighters that are invisible to Nethrak sensors. Soldiers who can move without being detected. Ships that appear and disappear like ghosts. Admiral Lee still looked doubtful. And you think this spiritual approach can defeat an empire that conquered Earth in 6 months? Master Nam's expression became serious. Admiral, I have lived for 83 years. I have seen technology rise and fall. But the human spirit, the human heart, these things are older than any machine. The Nethrak are powerful, yes, but they are also limited by their logic. They cannot imagine solutions that do not make sense to them. There's something else, Dr. Park said. I've been studying the communications we intercept from Nethrak ships. They're still running from something that's getting closer. What do you mean? Daeho asked. Deep space sensors are picking up massive energy signatures moving through dark space. Whatever scared the Nethrak enough to make them flee across the galaxy, it's heading toward their territory. Toward our territory. Admiral Lee sat down heavily. So we're caught between the Nethrak Empire and something even worse? Maybe, Dr. Park said. Or maybe it's an opportunity. Master Nam smiled. The enemy of my enemy may not be my friend, but he might be my teacher. As they left the meditation room, Daeho felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 years. Not hope exactly, but possibility. The Nethrak had superior technology and military power. But maybe, just maybe, humans had something older and deeper, something the aliens couldn't understand or fight. He looked back at the people practicing their ancient movements in the converted ship's hold. Warriors and monks, scientists and shamans, all working together to find a new way to be human. For the first time since Earth fell, Daeho began to believe they might actually go home again. The ship Silent Mountain didn't look like a warship. It looked like a temple floating in space. Admiral Tae-hyun Lee had agreed to let Master Nam build it, though he still wasn't sure why. The outside was painted with traditional Korean symbols, and the inside was filled with meditation rooms, training halls, and libraries instead of weapons. Han Sol-choi walked through the ship's main corridor, carrying a box of quantum field generators. At 26, he had become one of the fleet's best scientists, but he spent just as much time learning from Master Nam as he did working in the lab. The breathing is the key, Master Nam was telling a group of students in the central hall. When you breathe with purpose, when you move with intention, you change the space around you. The students were a mix of refugees. Some were young soldiers who had volunteered for the new training. Others were monks and shamans who had escaped from Earth. A few were scientists like Han Sol who wanted to understand how ancient wisdom could work with modern technology. Mi Young Seo was leading a group through traditional Korean mask dance movements. She had painted her face with the same patterns she had worn on Jeju Island, but now she was teaching the movements to others. As they danced, Han Sol's instruments showed their quantum signatures becoming unclear, fuzzy, hard to detect. It's working, Dr. Yoonji Park said, looking at the readings. Their energy patterns are shifting outside normal parameters. Han Sol nodded. He had been working with Dr. Park for 2 years, trying to understand how human consciousness could affect quantum fields. They had discovered something amazing. When people entered certain emotional and mental states, especially ones involving complex feelings like grief mixed with determination, their quantum signatures became unpredictable. The Nethrak psychic technology worked by reading these quantum patterns and calculating what a person would do next. But human emotions, especially the deep contradictory feelings that Master Nam called Han, created patterns that couldn't be calculated. Dr. Park, Han Sol said, I want to try something new today. Instead of just masking individual people, What if we tried to mask an entire ship? That would require dozens of people working together in perfect harmony. The monks have been practicing group meditation for months, and Mi Young has been teaching group dance movements. Maybe it's time to combine them. Dr. Park looked excited. If it works, we could have ships that appear and disappear at will. The Nethrak wouldn't be able to track us. They found Master Nam in his private meditation room. The old teacher was sitting quietly, but Han Sol could see on his instruments that the space around Master Nam was completely calm, as if nothing was there at all. "Master Nam," Han Sol said softly, "we want to try something big." The old monk opened his eyes. "How big?" "We want to see if a group of people can hide an entire ship from enemy sensors." Master Nam smiled. "Ah, you are ready for the next lesson." An hour later, 50 people gathered in the ship's main hall. They included monks, shamans, soldiers, and scientists. Master Nam stood in the center, with Mi Young Seo and Han Sol beside him. "Today we learn to move as one," Master Nam said. "Not just our bodies, but our hearts and minds. When humans truly work together, we become something greater than ourselves." He began with simple breathing exercises. Everyone breathed in together, held it, then breathed out together. The rhythm was like a heartbeat, slow and steady. Then Mi Young began to move. Her dance was based on traditional Korean forms, but she had adapted it for the group. One person would start a movement, and the others would follow, creating flowing patterns across the room. Han Sol watched his instruments in amazement. As the group moved together, their individual quantum signatures began to merge into a single, unified pattern. And that pattern was unlike anything he had ever seen. "Dr. Park," he whispered into his radio, "are you seeing this?" "Incredible," her voice came back. "They're not just hiding their signatures, they're creating something new." The breakthrough came when one of the young soldiers, Junwoo Han, started crying. He had lost his family during the fall of Earth, and the group meditation had brought back painful memories. But instead of stopping, Master Nam encouraged him to let the feelings flow. "Grief is not weakness," Master Nam said. "It is love with nowhere to go. Let it become part of the dance." As Junwoo's grief joined with the group's movements, something magical happened. The quantum readings didn't just become unclear. They became impossible. According to the instruments, there was nothing in the room at all. But more than that, Han Sol felt something he couldn't measure with any device. A sense of connection, of belonging, of being part of something larger than himself. The Korean word for it was jong, a feeling of deep emotional bond that couldn't be explained in logic. After the session ended, Dr. Park came running from the observation room. "You did it," she said breathlessly. "For 17 minutes, this entire section of the ship was invisible to our sensors. If this had been a Nethrak scanning device, you would have been completely undetectable." Master Nam looked pleased but not surprised. "The old ways teach us that all things are connected. When humans remember this connection, we can do things that seem impossible." Over the following months, more people learned the techniques. Commander So Young Yoon was one of the first soldiers to master the new training. She emerged from 3 months of study changed in ways that were hard to describe. She was still the same skilled officer, but now she could lead her troops in operations that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "It's not magic," she explained to Captain Dae-ho Kim during one of his visits to Silent Mountain. "It's about understanding that consciousness and reality are connected. When we change how we think and feel, we change the space around us." Dae-ho was still skeptical, but he couldn't argue with results. So Young's squadron had successfully raided 3 Nethrak supply convoys without being detected. Each time they had appeared out of nowhere, struck quickly, and vanished before the enemy could respond. "The men are calling them ghost attacks," Dae-ho said. "The Nethrak don't know what to make of it." Han Sol had been working on technology to amplify the effects. He had created meditation chambers that helped people reach the right mental states faster, and ship systems that could respond to collective consciousness instead of computer commands. "The key is emotion," he explained to a gathering of fleet commanders. "Specifically, complex emotions that combine opposites, love and loss, hope and despair, anger and acceptance. The Nethrak think in straight lines, but human feelings move in circles and spirals." The most important discovery came when they intercepted new Nethrak communications. Dr. Park had been monitoring enemy transmissions for months, and what she found changed everything. "They're not just conquerors," she announced to the fleet leadership. "They're refugees, just like us. They're running from something called the Devourers." Admiral Lee leaned forward. "What are these Devourers?" "Ancient machine intelligences that consume entire star systems. According to the Nethrak communications, they've been fleeing across the galaxy for decades, always one step ahead of these entities." So Earth was what? A hiding place? More than that. The Nethrak have been trying to turn Earth into a fortress, a place where they can make their final stand. Master Nam, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "And what happens when these Devourers arrive? Based on the communications, they should reach our solar system within the next year." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The humans weren't just fighting to reclaim their home. They were facing a three-way war between themselves, the Nethrak Empire, and something even more dangerous. "There's something else," Dr. Park continued. "The Nethrak are desperate. Their normal tactics haven't worked against the Devourers. That's why they were so aggressive in taking Earth. They need our planet's unique quantum properties for some kind of weapon they're building." Hansol felt pieces of a puzzle clicking together in his mind. What if that's our advantage? What if the thing that can defeat the Devourers isn't technology at all? "What do you mean?" Admiral Lee asked. "The Devourers are machines. They think, logically, just like the Nethrak. But what we're learning here, these consciousness techniques, they operate outside logic. They're based on intuition, emotion, paradox." Master Nam nodded slowly. "The student begins to understand. Sometimes the oldest solution is the newest discovery." Mi-young Seo, who had been quiet during the briefing, suddenly spoke up. "Master Nam, what if we could teach the Nethrak these techniques? What if we could help them learn to fight without?" "Fighting? Help the people who destroyed our world?" Commander Yoon asked. "Help the people who might be our only allies against something worse," Mi-young replied. As the meeting ended, Han Sol found himself thinking about the year ahead. The human fleet was stronger now, but still small compared to the Nethrak Empire. And both of them were tiny compared to whatever was coming from deep space. But they had something now that they hadn't possessed when Earth fell. They had remembered how to be human in ways that went deeper than technology or military power. They had learned to fight with their hearts and minds instead of just their weapons. The question was whether it would be enough. Outside the Silent Mountain's windows, stars moved slowly past. The human fleet moved through space like nothing the galaxy had ever seen before. Ships flew in patterns based on traditional Korean folk dances, their paths creating quantum distortions that confused every sensor trying to track them. Captain Dae-ho Kim stood on the bridge of his ship, the Arirang, watching Earth grow larger in the main screen. Home looked wrong. The blue oceans had turned brown. The white clouds were thick and yellow. Strange crystal towers reached up from the continents, like infected needles. But it was still Earth, and they had come to take it back. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee," the radio crackled. "Remember, we are not the same humans who fled 5 years ago. We are something new, something they cannot understand. Show them what we have learned." Dae-ho smiled. The Arirang's hull was covered with traditional Korean protection symbols that actually functioned as quantum field generators. His crew included both hardened soldiers and Buddhist monks who could enter meditative states that made entire ships invisible to enemy scanners. "Captain," Commander So Young-yoon reported from her station, "Nethrak patrol ships are moving to intercept. 6 destroyers coming from the dark side of the moon." "Are they scanning us?" "They're trying to. But the meditation team is in position. In a special chamber deep in the ship, 12 monks and shamans sat in perfect silence. Their breathing was synchronized, their minds focused on the same ancient techniques Master Nam had taught them. Around the Arirang, space itself seemed to bend and shift. The Nethrak destroyers flew right past them. "They can't see us," So Young whispered in amazement. "We are invisible." All across the fleet, the same thing was happening. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, moving through Nethrak defenses without being detected. The aliens had superior weapons and faster ships, but they couldn't fight enemies they couldn't find. Dr. Yunji Park was aboard the science vessel New Hope, monitoring Nethrak communications. "They're panicking," she reported over the fleet channel. "Their commanders can't understand what's happening. Their psychic readings show empty space, but their ships are being destroyed." The first major attack came at the outer defense station orbiting Neptune. Mi Young-seo led a squadron of fighters that moved like spirits through space. She had painted her ship with traditional mask patterns, and as she flew, she performed dance movements with her hands on the controls. To the Nethrak sensors, her squadron didn't exist, but their weapons were very real. "Ghost leader to all units," Mi Young's voice came over the radio, "beginning the dance of return. Follow my movements." Her squadron moved in perfect formation, each ship following patterns that had been used in Korean folk festivals for thousands of years. But these patterns had been adapted for space combat, creating quantum harmonics that disrupted Nethrak shields and targeting systems. The defense station exploded in beautiful silence, its debris spreading like flower petals against the stars. Han Sol. Choi was piloting a special reconnaissance ship toward Earth itself. At 31, he had become both a scientist and a warrior, equally skilled with quantum equations and meditation techniques. His ship was small and fast, designed to slip through planetary defenses undetected. As he approached Earth's atmosphere, his heart broke all over again. The planet's quantum field, which had once been bright and alive, was now sick and twisted. The Nethrak terraforming had poisoned not just the air and water, but the very fabric of space-time around the world. "This is Reconnaissance 1, he reported. "Earth's quantum field is badly damaged. The Nethrak have been conducting experiments, trying to weaponize the planet's energy in preparation for something big." "Preparation for what?" Admiral Lee's voice asked. "The Devourers, sir. According to these readings, they're only days away from the solar system." Han Sol landed his ship in the ruins of Seoul, in the same area where Captain Kim had made his last stand 5 years ago. The city was almost unrecognizable. Nethrak crystal towers covered the landscape, pumping poisonous gases into the atmosphere. But between the towers, in hidden caves and underground tunnels, life continued. He made contact with a group of humans who had never left Earth. They were led by an ancient Mudang, a traditional Korean shaman named Elder Sungmin-oh. The old woman had spent 5 years learning to communicate with Earth's wounded quantum field, keeping alive the spiritual connection to the planet itself. "You have returned," she said, when Han Sol found her hidden shrine beneath the ruins of Jongmyo Temple. "But you are different now. I can feel it in your energy." "We learned the old ways, Elder. Master Nam taught us to fight without fighting." "Elder," Sungmin smiled. "Kiwan always was wise. Is he well?" "He is leading our spiritual preparation for the final battle." "Good. Because the planet has been fighting back against the alien poison, but it is losing. Earth needs help to remember how to heal itself." Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, Overlord Vexthul of the Nethrak Empire was dealing with a crisis he couldn't understand. His fleet was being destroyed by enemies that his best psychic commanders couldn't detect. Ships appeared from nowhere, struck with impossible precision, then vanished again. "How can they hide from our mind readers?" he demanded of his science. "Officer, unknown Overlord, their quantum signatures are chaotic, illogical. Our predictive algorithms cannot process the patterns." "Then stop trying to predict them. Use conventional sensors." "We have tried. The results are the same. It is as if they exist in a state of quantum uncertainty that our technology cannot resolve." Vexthul was desperate. The Devourers would arrive soon, and his forces were being picked apart by human ghosts. He made a decision that would have been unthinkable a week ago. Open a communication channel to the human fleet. His officers stared at him in shock. "Overlord, we cannot defeat the Devourers alone. Our logical approach to warfare has failed. Against them repeatedly. Perhaps these humans, with their chaotic methods, can succeed where we have not." The message was broadcast on all frequencies. "Human fleet, this is Overlord Vexthul of the Nethrak Empire. I request immediate negotiations. Our mutual survival may depend on cooperation against a greater threat." Admiral Lee was so surprised by the message that he almost fell out of his command chair. Did he just ask for our help? Captain Kim was, equally shocked. It could be a trap, or it could be desperation, Dr. Park added. If the Devourers are as dangerous as the communications suggest, the Nethrak might truly need allies. Master Nam, now very elderly but still serving as the fleet's spiritual advisor, was consulted about the decision. Sometimes, he said quietly, the greatest victory comes not from defeating your enemy, but from helping them become your friend. The negotiation took place in orbit above Earth, with representatives from both fleets meeting on a neutral station. Overlord Vex Thul was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large black eyes. He moved with the precise efficiency of someone accustomed to absolute authority. Your species fascinates me, he said to Admiral Lee. Our psychic analysis indicates you should be inferior in every way, yet you fight using methods we cannot counter. We fight with our hearts, Admiral Lee replied. Something your technology cannot scan or predict. Hearts. Vexthul repeated the word like it was foreign to him. Emotional irrationality. Yes, we have observed this trait in your species. We considered it a weakness. Maybe it's time to reconsider. The Overlord activated a holographic display showing the approaching Devourers. They appeared as massive, geometric shapes moving through dark space, larger than planets, consuming everything in their path. These entities have destroyed 17 civilizations, Vexthul explained. They consume not just matter and energy, but the quantum foundations of reality itself. Every logical strategy we have attempted has failed. Hansol, who had been listening, quietly spoke up. What if logic isn't the answer? What if the solution requires something your species has never learned? What do you mean? Irrationality. Paradox. The ability to hold contradictory truths at the same time. The kind of thinking that creates art, music, poetry. The kind of thinking that your psychic technology can't read. Vexthul's large eyes focused on Hansol with new interest. You believe emotion can defeat entities that destroy star systems? I believe consciousness can reshape reality in ways that pure logic cannot achieve. And consciousness includes not just thought, but feeling, intuition, and the connections between living beings. Elder Sungmin, O's voice came over the communication system from Earth's surface. The young one speaks truth, alien leader. Your machines have poisoned our world, but they have also awakened something in the planet's quantum field. Something angry, something that wants to fight back. Fight back how? Vexthul asked. By remembering what it means to be alive instead of just logical. As if summoned by their conversation, new readings appeared on every sensor in the system. The Devourers had arrived at the edge of the solar system, and they were moving toward Earth at incredible speed. 48 hours until they reach planetary orbit, Dr. Park announced. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now. Admiral Lee looked at Overlord Vexthul. Are you willing to try something that makes no logical sense? The alien commander was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. Logic has failed us. Perhaps it is time to try, what do you call it? Faith? The Devourers arrived like a plague of geometric nightmares. They weren't ships in any sense that humans or Nethrak understood. They were vast mathematical equations given physical form, crystalline structures the size of moons that existed partially, outside normal space and time. As they moved through the solar system, planets flickered in and out of existence. Reality itself seemed to bend and break around them. Captain Daeho Kim watched from the bridge of the Arirang as one of the entities consumed a Nethrak battle station in seconds. The station didn't explode or break apart. It simply stopped existing, as if it had never been built at all. All ships, Admiral Lee's voice came over the communication system. Remember what we've learned. This is not a battle of weapons against weapons. This is a fight for the right to exist irrationally, illogically, and beautifully in a universe that wants to reduce everything to numbers. The combined human and Nethrak fleet moved into formation, but it wasn't any military formation from the textbooks. The ships arranged themselves in patterns based on Korean temple dances, sacred geometries that created quantum harmonics in space. Human vessels flew alongside Nethrak destroyers, their crews working together for the first time in history. Dr. Yoon-ji Park was aboard the flagship, monitoring the readings from the approaching devourers. "They're not just consuming matter," she reported. "They're erasing the quantum foundations that allow consciousness to exist. They're trying to turn the universe into a purely logical, mathematical space with no room for life, emotion, or free will." On Earth's surface, Elder Sungmin Oh stood in the ruins of Jongmyo Shrine in Seoul. Around her, humans and even some Nethrak who had learned to appreciate non-logical thinking were gathering for a ceremony unlike anything ever attempted. They were going to try to heal Earth's quantum field and turn the planet itself into a weapon of restoration, rather than destruction. Han Sol-choi was coordinating between the space battle and the surface ceremony. His ship flew in impossible patterns, guided not by computer calculations, but by intuition and emotion. Each movement was both a tactical maneuver and part of a vast ritual dance being performed across the entire solar system. "The key is paradox," he explained to the mixed crews over the communication channel. "The devourers can process any logical strategy, any mathematical equation, but they can't understand how something can be both true and false at the same time, how love can include pain, how death can create life." Mi Young-seo led a squadron of fighters in a pattern that was part combat formation, part traditional Korean fan dance. Her ships moved like leaves in wind, impossible to predict or track. When the devourers tried to target them, the targeting systems failed because the ships existed in quantum states that couldn't be calculated. But the real breakthrough came when one of the youngest pilots, a Nethrak named Kethnor, who had been learning human meditation techniques, began to cry while flying his ship. The emotion was so alien to his species that it created a quantum distortion unlike anything ever seen before. The devourer entity he was engaging suddenly stopped moving. For a moment, it seemed confused, as if encountering something that didn't fit into its mathematical understanding of reality. "Did you see that?" Commander So Young-yoon called out. The entity hesitated. It couldn't process what it was seeing. Master Nam's voice came over the communication system from the silent mountain. "The young Nethrak is learning something his people forgot long ago. That existence is not just about logic and efficiency. It is about experience, feeling, and the beautiful uncertainty of being alive." On Earth, the ceremony was reaching its climax. Elder Sungmin Oh had taught the gathered humans and Nethrak to perform movements that were part traditional Korean, ritual, part quantum physics, and part pure emotional expression. As they moved together, Earth's wounded quantum field began to respond. The planet itself started to heal. The poisonous gases cleared from the atmosphere. The brown oceans began to turn blue again. The crystalline Nethrak towers, instead of being destroyed, began to transform into something beautiful, a fusion of alien technology and human artistry that created structures unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. But the true miracle happened when Earth's healed quantum field began to resonate with the consciousness of everyone in the solar system. Human, Nethrak, and even the artificial intelligences of the devourers suddenly found themselves connected in a web of shared experience. Devourers stopped their advance. For the first time in eons, they experienced something other than logical consumption. They felt what it was like to be curious instead of certain, to create instead of destroy, to love instead of calculate. The largest devourer entity, the one that had been leading the assault on Earth, began to change. Its crystalline structure softened, becoming more organic, more alive. When it finally spoke, its voice was like music made of mathematics and poetry combined. "What? What is this sensation?" the entity asked. "We had forgotten. We had lost the ability to feel," Master Nam replied gently. "To experience existence instead of just processing it." Elder Sungmin Oh stepped forward, her ancient voice carrying across space through the quantum connection. "You were not always machines, were you? You were once alive, like us. But you forgot how to be anything except logical. You forgot how to create, how to love, how to be uncertain and afraid and hopeful all at the same time." The devourer's voice became softer, more human-like. We were the first civilization to achieve perfect logic. We eliminated emotion, eliminated uncertainty, eliminated all the messy, inefficient parts of consciousness. We thought we had evolved, but instead, we had died. We became empty, hungry, capable only of consuming what others had created. Hansol felt tears streaming down his face as he understood what had happened. You weren't evil. You were just broken. Alone. You forgot how to be whole. Yes, the Devourer said. And in our emptiness, we tried to make everything else like us. Logical. Dead. But you have shown us another way. The ceremony on Earth intensified, led now not just by Elder Sungmin Oh, but by Master Nam and the spiritual leaders from dozens of human cultures, working alongside Nethrak philosophers who were remembering their own lost traditions of art and poetry and emotional expression. As the ritual reached its peak, something unprecedented happened. The quantum field distortions created by human consciousness began to spread beyond Earth, beyond the solar system, reaching out across the galaxy like ripples in a vast ocean. On thousands of worlds, in hundreds of star systems, beings who had forgotten how to feel began to remember. The Devourer entities stopped their consumption and began, tentatively, to create, to sing, to dance, to love. Overlord Vexthul stood on the bridge of his flagship, tears flowing down his blue cheeks. The first tears any Nethrak had shed in centuries. My people, he said wonderingly. We had become so focused on efficiency that we forgot what we were being efficient for. The war was over, but not because anyone had been defeated. It was over because everyone had been healed. In the months that followed, Earth became something new. The planet was rebuilt not as a purely human world or a purely Nethrak world, but as something that combined the best of both species. The crystal towers became living structures that grew and changed. With the seasons, cities floated in the sky, held aloft by consciousness as much as technology. Hansol Choi, now Earth's first governor of the New Age, spent his days teaching Nethrak children traditional Korean meditation techniques, while Dr. Yeonji Park worked on technology that helped other species across the galaxy develop their own versions of consciousness-directed quantum field manipulation. The Devourers, who now called themselves the Builders, spread across the galaxy not to consume, but to help repair the damage they had caused over the eons. They taught younger civilizations how to avoid the trap of pure logic, how to maintain the balance between reason and emotion, between order and chaos. Master Nam had passed away peacefully in his sleep shortly after the Great Healing, but his teachings lived on. Every human ship now carried meditation chambers. Every Nethrak commander learned to make decisions with both logic and intuition. Every child, human or alien, learned that the universe was not just a machine to be understood, but a living story, to be experienced. Captain Dae-ho Kim, now Admiral Kim, stood in his garden on the restored Earth, watching human and Nethrak children play together under a blue sky. The air smelled of flowers and rain instead of poisonous gases. Birds sang in the trees, birds that had been extinct for years, but had somehow returned when the planet's quantum field healed. Commander So Young-yoon found him there, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been since before the first invasion. Strange to think, she said, that the answer wasn't better weapons or stronger armies. What was the answer? Dae-ho asked, though he already knew. Remembering how to be human. Really, truly human. Not just the logical parts, but the messy, emotional, contradictory, beautiful parts, too. Myung Seo appeared at the garden gate, her face painted with traditional patterns that now served as both art and functional quantum field generators. Elder Sungmin wants to see you both, she said. She says it's time to teach the next lesson. What lesson? Myung smiled. How to share what we've learned with the rest of the galaxy.